Way back in Game of Thrones, Season 3, Episode 5, Davos Seaworth is actually learning how to read. Now this is one of my favorite moments with this character. If you remember, Shireen Baratheon comes to him in his current prison cell and is trying to teach him how to read. She says it's a good thing to do because I'm sure he's bored and it's a nice way to pass the time. Davos says he doesn't learn how to read, and Shireen tells him that if he were to get caught with the book, he could keep it in his cape. Now I think that line was alluding to the fact that Davos is a great smuggler, but also one of the first words Davos technically learns how to read is Aegon. I believe that line was foreshadowing to the fact that one day Davos Seaworth would serve his hand to the king to Lord Jon Snow. In this video, I want to discuss an insane theory involving Davos in Game of Thrones Season 8. Because you guys are so awesome and you've been showing my channel so much love and support, I am actually having an giveaway for a $50 Amazon gift card. And all you have to do to enter this giveaway, and the winner will be chosen on February 22nd, is slap a like on this video, leave a comment down below, make sure you're subscribed, then go ahead and turn your notifications on so that way you'll get alerted every time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Also, all you have to do for bonus ways to enter is check out the gleam.io link down below in the description. Davos was actually born in one of the most wretched slums in all of Westeros, and definitely the poorest slum in King's Landing. It was known as Flea Bottom. His father was a poor crabber, and Davos actually became a sailor at a very young age to escape the slums. He spent most of his life actually sailing and navigating the narrow sea, which is going to become important to this theory later. So Davos has spent most of his life on sea. One could say that he definitely has gold-style sea legs. His black-sailed ship became infamous for sneaking into harbors at nighttime where he would do most of his bidding in order to avoid detection. During Robert's Rebellion, Davos actually aided Stannis Baratheon while he was besieged in Storm's End. Basically, Stannis Baratheon had held himself during the Robert's Rebellion, the initial thing that caused all of the events to happen in Game of Thrones today. Now, honestly, you could say that Cersei sleeping with her brothers would cause that, because that's when Ned found out about it. That's when Robert died. That's when all of the events of the War of the Five Kings takes place. But honestly, it started way back during Robert's Rebellion when he was basically mad that his betrothed, or the person that he was supposed to be with, ended up choosing this silver-haired Targaryen man and left him pretty crabby. So this is why he made, Robert's Rebellion. Honestly, and I know I'm getting super sidetracked here, we're going to start talking about Davos again soon, I promise, but if Robert had just, gotten over it and had just let Rhaegar kind of do his thing, there wouldn't even be a story right now, because Rhaegar was planning on overthrowing his father anyway. If you guys want me to cover all of the events that happened during Robert's Rebellion and my opinion on the matter, let me know down below in the comment section, and I may just cover that in a future video. Davos actually chose the name Seaworth for his family's new noble house as a reference to his smuggling past. Highborn members of older noble houses despairingly called Davos the Onion Knight for his actions, but he embraced this title and proudly took it and put an onion on his sigil and sewed it to the ship sails on all of his ships. Stannis deserves a video all in and of itself, but he actually cut off parts of Davos's right hand, just the fingertips off of him, for Davos's crimes. Now this is interesting because Davos actually willingly accepts this punishment because he knows that he has avoided punishment for too long. Now this just shows us more in depth of how awesome Davos is as a character. He started off as a smuggler, but that wasn't by choice. Remember, he was born in one of the poorest slums in all of Westeros and definitely in all of King's Landing. So he had to escape that somehow. You can honestly relate that to the real life, for a lot of people that are trying to get out of the hood and out of the ghetto, they resort to selling drugs because it's the only way that they can make enough money to remove themselves from this current situation. So I honestly kind of feel a lot of sympathy for Davos, because had he not become a smuggler, he likely would have died in the slums of King's Landing, or could have been subjected to a life far worse than what it currently is. I felt a bit conflicted when I found out that Davos actually willingly accepted this punishment, and when they showed us him giving this speech on screen, I kind of felt like it was a little bit unjust. Like, yes, he did break laws and commit crimes, but his dire situation is what forced him to do that. It's not like he's like Joffrey, where he's born in an awesome situation and he just becomes a dick. No, Davos was forced to do the things that he did because of his current situation, and if he didn't do the things that he's done in his past, then he wouldn't have uplifted himself, and like I just said, he would have died on the side of the road in Flea Bottom. But because he did what he did, and he ends up helping out Stannis. It just shows even greater into this character that he's willing to accept this punishment. Like I said, I just felt conflicted that he did this because I feel like his actions now in the present make up for his actions in the past. If it were a different situation and he willingly went to a life of crime, not because he had to, but because he just felt like being a head, then I would feel differently. But because of the fact that he was forced into the situation he was, I have a lot of sympathy in my heart for that. So this just shows you even more how complex of a character Davos is. Now, what I would typically do in these videos at this point is just continue giving you a rundown fully of who Davos' character is. But I think just the few things that we've talked about so far, we have actualized and visualized who Davos is as a person and how he is crucial to this story. But one last thing from his past that allows, sort of foreshadowing into the future is the fact that he actually brings on Salladhor Saan, who is a pirate admiral, and he enlists him to Stannis' cause, bringing 30 ships to Dragonstone. Now, this is crucial because Jon Snow and Daenerys are facing an insane amount of obstacles in the next season. One of the things they no longer have, thanks to Cersei and Euron, is a commander of their fleet of ships at sea. Now, honestly, Davos Seaworth should have been appointed as the commander of these ships to begin with, but Yara brought the most ships in, so I think this is why Daenerys appointed her as, sort of the leader, so to speak, of her fleet of warships. Yep, Daenerys has a fleet of warships. God, those are going to wreak havoc next season. But anyway, I honestly think that Davos may bring in Salladhor Saan again for this next season, because if you'll remember, we don't exactly know what happened to Salladhor Saan. The last time we saw him was when Davos goes up to him in the bathhouse when he's got some nice, lovely ladies around him, and he brings him into Stannis' side. We don't really see him after that. We do know that Stannis was defeated by Brienne of Tarth, and his army was defeated by Ramsay Bolton, but we don't exactly know what happened to Salladhor Saan. Now, there's a few different options of what could be happening. One is that he died off screen, and they just didn't show him when Stannis' troops were getting wiped out. Another option, and I think this is more likely, is that he's hanging around somewhere, maybe not near Castle Black, but somewhere in the north, just waiting for Davos to go and get him. Now, we did not see him die. This is the final season of Game of Thrones, and I think this is going to be touched on. Here's the part where the theory starts coming together, so to speak. Now, I definitely think that Davos will be appointed as commander of Daenerys' fleet of ships, more like Jon Snow's fleet of ships. Whichever one of the Targaryens are in power next season, Davos will be appointed as the new commander of the fleet of ships. And honestly, it's one of the safest places for our boy Davos because we know he's never been much of a fighter, and he's at sea. We do know that the White Walkers, Whites, and the Undead generally cannot swim. So the safest place for him would be out at sea. Now, I honestly see something happening where he leads these ships, and they are attacking from the coast, shooting maybe tons of arrows, flaming arrows, from their ships onto the Undead and trying to help Jon Snow and his band of warriors push them back. I honestly think that Davos will go and recruit Salladhor Saan. That's one of his famous things for doing so, and I honestly think that this will give us some closure as to where Salladhor Saan is and bring him back into the story, only to have him die right away. One of the things we have to remember is that Davos actually has POV chapters in the novels, so this guarantees him surviving until the final book, and he's survived all the way until season 8. Now, obviously, that was a joke. Lots of POV characters have had chapters, and then they end up dying. So it's definitely a possibility for Davos to die, but where he's at in the books right now is he's actually was sent on a smuggling mission to go and get Rickon and Shaggy Dog off of Skagos. Now, this is a little bit kind of convoluted. The show definitely went a majorly different route with Davos, kind of, but not really, enough so that you kind of don't really recognize his journey. As of right now, he went to White Harbor, in which he is held captive and prisoner by Waymond Manderly, and then there's like this massive feast going on, and Waymond actually has him released, and he informs Davos that Wex Pike, who has been presented during who was present during the sack of Winterfell, witnessed the survival of Bran and Rickon, and importantly knows where Rickon is gone. Waymond tells Davos that if he will swear his allegiance to Stannis, if Davos goes and travels to Skagos to retrieve Rickon and his direwolf Shaggy Dog. So this is kind of similar to what happens in Game of Thrones Season 7. Now remember, this is set to happen in Winds of Winter because this is kind of the last that we hear of Davos, or last POV chapter that he has in A Dance with Dragons. So I think what Dan and Dave did here was kind of give that same like smuggling plot line to Gendry. Like, we've known that Gendry has had his story switched off with another one of Robert's bastards before, so it's definitely kind of Edric Storm to be exact, but it's definitely kind of falls in line to give, you know, different characters different storylines. But anyway, I think this was kind of similar to how Davos last season went to go and smuggle Gendry from King's Landing. What I mean by this is the fact that Rickon may be one of the last chances House Stark has at having a new ruler in the north. We do know that Bran is north of the wall and he's officially the Three-Eyed Crow, and then as of yet, Jon Snow has just died. So Rickon is one of the last vassals or heirs to House Stark that can make sure that there is a Stark reigning in the north. Same with Gendry. Gendry, for the TV show, is honestly has one of the strongest claims to the Iron Throne because he's one of Robert Baratheon's sons, but also he is one of the last members of House Baratheon who can restore its name, similar with Rickon. Aside from being the most qualified character still alive on the show to held a army of ships at sea, Davos actually has a few things left on his plate. Now, if you remember, Davos and Shireen had a super special connection. The show version of Stannis was more of a religious zealot, and he ends up burning his daughter. So one of the only people that Shireen had in her life was Davos. He truly loved her and cared about her for her, and did not give two craps about the fact that she had grayscale, or she used to have grayscale, rather. So I honestly think that Dan and Dave did screw up Stannis' character, but that's a debate for another video. But as of right now, I think they got the relationship between Davos and Shireen perfectly. Davos still has to sort of deal with that. I don't know if he's going to have the ability to deal with it before or after this major battle in which he's like the commander of the ships, but I think it will be addressed. If you'll remember, Melisandre never actually got her just desserts. She was banished from Winterfell. She was banished from the north, but that was it. She killed a little girl, so she kind of got away, you know, without actually paying for her crimes. Now, it could be that the reason why this was because she brought back Jon Snow, so Jon couldn't kill someone who brought him back from the dead, you know, and gave him a second chance to reclaim his home and live his life the proper way. Jon couldn't really find it in himself to kill her, but Davos tells Melisandre that if she returns to the north, he will hang her himself. Now, I don't know if he's actually going to lynch her from a tree, but I definitely think that Melisandre went to Essos to go and get something to help Jon Snow. Jon Snow and Daenerys are headed to the north, so this just naturally, by process of elimination, means that Melisandre is going to have to head to the north. Also, Melisandre is kind of accepting of her death. She knows that she's going to die in a strange land, that strange land being Westeros. So I predict that Melisandre will in fact return to the north, and after she does what she's supposed to do, she will allow Davos to kill her. I don't know if Davos is going to actually do so, but we do know that the amount of hurt that he feels for having Shireen die the way that she did, or just the fact that she died and it was not of natural causes, that really hurts him. So we could see, even if Davos is somewhat happy because Jon Snow and Daenerys are successful in their battle, I definitely see that hurt and that pain coming back up. So I think that Davos will choke Melisandre. I don't know if he's actually going to choke her, but there's a bit of foreshadowing. If back on one of the Comic-Con panels, Davos comes out, his character rather, Liam Cunningham comes out, and when he does it, he ends up choking Melisandre. I found this the other day when I was doing my research for this video, and it made me think that, hey, this could be the way that Davos kills Mel. Now, when Liam Cunningham, the actor who portrays him on screen, is giving interviews, he's definitely a character. You can just tell that he's definitely a likable guy. One of my favorite quotes that he gives to an interviewer is that George filled him in on what the secret will be for the final ending, and that's that the Night King will be on the Iron Throne smoking a cohiba or a fancy type of cigar. I honestly love that line from Davos. I feel like he's a really likable guy, and because of this, Dan and Dave may have secured his position in the final episode. He is actually quoted as saying that way back when he first came on the show, he wanted to make it to the final season. Now that he's made it to the final season, he wants to make it to the final episode. Now, I don't think that the line that he was giving us about, you know, knowing how the end is going to be and the fact that he wants to make it to the final episode, I don't think that that necessarily secures his place. But if you'll think about it, the meek shall inherit the earth. What I mean by that is that the surviving characters will be cripples, bastards, and broken things. Now, I actually did a video on this a few days back, and you can actually click the link right up here, and that'll take you to that video. But In those 2 video parts, I did one for Arya and one for Sandor about Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things, and then I have another one coming out about Theon in a few days. But I mentioned in that video that those terms are interchangeable. Not literally, not if you look up the definition of them, obviously they are not the same thing. But when you look at it as a general aspect, as a broad aspect rather, they are the weakest individuals of the character and are of the story rather. Those are the weakest characters of the story, and because of this, they're going to be surviving until the end. They've been pooped on, peed on, snarled at, and forgotten. These types of characters will be some of the few remaining until the end. And it also helps that Liam Cunningham is such a likable guy. I'm pretty sure him being cool with Dan and Dave has also secured his place in the final episode. One thing I do hope they address is that if Davos does survive until the very end, his wife is still alive. I would like to see him go back home to her and maybe, try to fill her in on what has been happening this entire time, and that's one of the final scenes on the show. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about that down below. Do you think that because Davos is one of the Crippled, Bastards, and Broken Thing, he will be some of the meek few that inherit Westeros and Planetos after the Long Night happens? Or do you think that because he's had such a great story so long that they will use his death as a catalyst to just show you, and remember, I love saying this, how insane and how intense and how serious things are going to be in the final season of Game of Thrones? You all let me know what you think about that down below in the comment section. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. If you could please slap a like on this. The like goal will be 420. Also, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this little theory that I have. If you would like to be entered into my contest to win this $50 Amazon gift card, all you have to do is like the video, comment down below, subscribe, and go ahead and turn your notifications on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Also, check out the gleam.io link down below in the description and at the pinned comment at the top of this video to enter all the different bonus ways. I want to give a super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family, especially to Terry. Without all of you guys, this kind of content would not be possible, and if anyone watching would like to show your support to Sir Hunt's Reviews, all you have to do is check out the patreon.com/Sir Hunt's Reviews link down below in the description. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews.